Hey guys,
Who wants their
pre-show.
pancreas eaten? Let's go.
Yeah, we're gonna get this thing started soon.
Get get eaten. That sounds so weird. I hate
It
this.
just sounds like we're talking about Attack on Titan.
Yeah, which has happened a lot this week.
Yeah, exactly. With the final season ending and then the manga ending.
Yeah, it's been a time. I don't know. I hope I didn't spoil you, but I also hope you weren't spoiled in
I
general.
I think I like accidentally was like I was reading through something and then caught myself in one of those weird situations where I'm like reading too far into a tweet and I'm like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
No, wait. And then I'm like, all right, repressing in three, two. Okay, I don't
Yeah,
know what I read.
that's a good call. I think before I caught up, I was like spoiled on everything related to Attack on Titan. I was like, yeah, this is fun.
Also, real quick, I love how just right off the bat in the chat, it's like good vibes, and then the following comment is "fuck Pancreas." All my homies hate Pancreas.
I
Let's
love that. That's
go.
I'm glad they're on the same page as us. Okay, I think I'll make this disclaimer multiple times, but I want to say it first that I think you and I can both agree that we're not saying you can't like Pancreas and we don't have anything against people who like Pancreas. Totally valid opinion, totally fair, totally respectable, but we're not on that page.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna witch hunt anyone for liking a
No,
movie. I
because
just
I
think
feel bad. I always feel kind of bad talking about. No, I don't feel bad. That's a lie. I
let's be honest.
temporarily I temporarily consider feeling bad because people are like, "Oh, Pancreas had this like great impact on me." I'm like, "Yo, that's really cool. I think that's awesome. I've been in your shoes before. That's fair. I don't want to take away from that 100%. But I have my own thoughts and they're not positive."
Well, we got a subject here. He says, "I'm watching this as a fan of
Okay.
Pancreas, so
It's
be
like
ready."
we are talking to you like if you're a fan, I have no issues with that whatsoever. Like, I think that's totally cool. I wish I was in your shoes, but yeah, I mean, totally fair on you.
All right.
Wish nothing but the best, peace and love, all
Real
that jazz.
quick question, Shaw.
Yeah.
So this is feeding into Twitter for some reason still. Should I share that one, or do we still want to just kind of, do the just the YouTube link?
Probably just the YouTube link. I feel like I mean, that's fine, but we probably want the homies on YouTube so we can monitor the crew.
Yeah. All right. I mean, we can monitor from both, but
Yeah.
I'll just actually let me just get the original tweet. It's been a long week.
That it has. How was your week?
My week was good.
Nice.
After rewatching Pancreas, though, I had to crack open a cold one.
You did tell me you were gonna do that. I
And I
watched
did.
Pank, and you did. Okay,
And
cool.
I
You
did.
followed. You followed through on that. I watched two Ghibli films yesterday for the first time, and then I watched Pancreas, and it was an interesting experience of films.
Mm.
So that was something.
Let's see.
I don't want to be too mean because I don't know. It was like whatever. I only watched like half of the movie yesterday and then half today. So we'll get into it later because that's the pre-show. But yeah. How is chat doing? How are you all doing today?
Right. Let's. I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna retweet this again in Twitter because I already kind of did earlier.
I think
Did
we can.
Did you? Yeah.
I think we did. Yeah. Should I just do the one? Should I just do the link? The Just Weeb. Should I do the Just Weebs link that just went to Twitter, or do like our own YouTube link?
You could just do the YouTube link.
Okay, I'm
The
gonna do
YouTube
my
link
own.
to the thing.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna do my thing. Yeah.
We're live and hating on Pancreas.
We're not doing too much hating, but we did have a whole podcast of being very positive. So now we got to switch it up and be very negative.
All right. Cool.
Gonna pin that. Ba, 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 ba. So yeah, let's see. How is chat doing? Tom, good to hear it. Drax is doing good. Doing Good. My review of The Way of the
Oh,
House
yeah.
Husband. Nice.
Someone just said if the stream will spoil the movie, the stream will most definitely spoil the movie.
This will spoil the movie.
Spoil the shit out of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing. That we will spoil the movie. Like, this is not spoiler free. You've been warned.
I just got a reminder from my fiance to get closer to my mic. You know, I'm setting up.
Dude, that's so cute that she's got you on the watch. Funny story for everyone. So my fiance just had a job interview and he had to do it over Skype, and he sat here and I didn't even realize, like, he's got like Vinland Saga in the back, like all of this shit. And I was like, he's been through like he had to interview with like 4 people. And I'm like, do I remove the like Weeb manga behind him like in between his interview? But I didn't. And I mean, I guess like no one noticed, but like, I mean, I think it went well, but I was like, whoops, kind of.
I mean, it probably helped bolster.
I would hope so.
Point. I mean, like one time, my fiance went for an interview, and she ended up talking with her interviewer about Dragon Ball Z because he liked Dragon Ball Z.
Ooh,
so
that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the people he interviewed with were weebs, but if he had to have any manga behind him, I'm glad it was like Vinland Saga. Like, that could be anything.
As
that's
Maz
like the
says, why remove them? That makes him more appealing.
True. I mean, I just think it's so funny. I call this is like my seinen shelf with all the seinen manga, and it's like, yeah, this is how to put your best foot forward. Right. Just so funny.
Last question before we get into this. Did you want to record this separately or nah? Fuck it.
We could say nah, fuck it. If we sound fine. Yeah, okay. Yeah, why not?
All right. Can everyone hear me clearly? Am I good?
Oops, I hit my mic.
Let's see. How does this? Can you hear this laughter? Does it sound loud? Am I funny? All right, that's kind of cold. No one's saying anything. All right, so let's get into this.
Rip the pre-show.
Pre-show. All right, cool. All right, so take off that and let's get started. So. Welcome to the Just Weebs podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Onimaru, and I'm joined by Shocking.
Hey, guys.
We dive into this week into, last week we had the 3x3 showdown, and we didn't expect to bond over a common enemy, the anime film known as I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. And we got into it a little bit. We got into it a little bit, but we didn't really dive in it as to why, Shaw hates the film, or it is as offensive to her as it is to me. So, we decided, fuck it, let's just talk about it. Let's give Pancreas the attention it deserves or doesn't deserve, and kind of break down why we didn't like the movie. Because part of the offensive part about all of it is that it was actually, to my surprise, very well received. A lot of people love Pancreas, and I didn't understand it.
And we hate what we don't understand.
I don't get it. Like I remember watching the movie, and then like whatever, kind of forgot about it, and then like a few months later, I think I saw like. I think it was a video from Giguk that went up, like the waifu that didn't deserve to die. And I was like, oh, come on. I was like, what? People actually like this movie? So I don't know. But and then so I did want a disclaimer. Shaw gave this disclaimer in the pre-show just now, but we're not just here to purely hate on it. If you did enjoy the movie and, genuinely like it, that's perfectly fine. We're not going to attack you for it or say, hey, you have horrible taste or anything. We just didn't really fully get it. And we tried to give it a fair shake this week because I actually rewatched it last night. What about you, Shaw?
Yeah, I rewatched it last night and into this morning, and we both talked a bit before we got on, and we do have updated takes on the film the second time around. So I think, I don't know about you, but I have more positive and negative takeaways for the film. But yeah, just to reiterate, if you like I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, I mean, full respect. If it had a positive impact on you, more power to you. I guess we did not have that same positive experience, but we totally respect that others do. So like, I know since people have such a personal attachment to this film, they might take any criticism or attack on it as like an attack on them and their feelings. And that's exactly what we don't want to do. We're just trying to express our frustrations since we did not have that same personal connection. So that's the big disclaimer. If you're a fan, fair game. But yeah, we're not going to hold back anymore because we made the disclaimer. That's the safe zone is over now.
Yeah. And for the people that jump in halfway through the podcast, please remind them there was a disclaimer. So now, we have been authorized now to be toxic, to give in to our petty impulses that we do hold back.
Yes. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah. So you've been warned. No more warnings. Forever hold your peace.
So, funny story that I realized this week about Pancreas when I went to go rewatch it. And this might have affected. So I'm also in a similar boat as Shaw, where I came away from it sort of like, I wasn't as bad as the first time I watched it, which was kind of concerning to me.
Let's start from the beginning. What did you think the first time you watched it?
Oh, okay.
Let's start from the square one.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You know what? That's a better way to go about it. So when I watched it the first time, and I watched it and I had to trace back to this. I saw it in theaters when it came.
You saw it in theaters. Okay.
Yeah. It came locally to my local theater, and they were screening it on 2 days, and I'll come back to that. And I got to see it on a Sunday, February 10th, 2019. Remember that date. And so I went to go see it with a group of friends. We watched it, and I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. I didn't like the characters. I wasn't sold on the emotion or whatever it was going for. I knew what it was going for. I understood what it was trying to do, but I just found like the main girl like just really toxic, and just everything that was just happening in the movie just kind of sort of like shitty and sort of emotionally manipulative. And then by the end, like with the ending, I was like, oh, come on. Like that really, that's really like, it just didn't feel necessary with how it kind of, ended up going down where, should I just, where she just got fucking stabbed. So,
yeah.
And so like after that, we walk out of the theater and we all sort of had the same like reception because we weren't talking throughout the whole movie, and then we were just kind of making fun of like a specific scene in the film and that was supposed to be emotional. But so there's a scene in the movie towards the end, and again, I might seem like this heartless person. It could have been the day or whatever, but like where the main character is with the mom. The girl had already died, and he's sitting with the mom at the table, and he's like, "Ma'am, can I cry now?" And then afterwards, we were just joking about, like, he was just like, "Permission to cry, sir?" Like, that's just what it sounded like. And we realized that part of that, well, okay. So anyways, that one of the scenes is we just couldn't take it seriously. And it was one of those moments that was supposed to be very emotional, but for some reason it just seemed off. Like, why is he asking for permission to cry and all that stuff?
Yeah. So, yeah. And that's one of those scenes where, like, if that doesn't hit you, it kind of can ruin the whole film. Because they're like, that's his development. That's like the buildup for him. Like, that's his moment. And if that one doesn't hit for you, you're like, yeah, just toss it all away. We're done. We're done here. Yeah. What's funny though is the first time I watched it and the second time, I felt like that part was like easily the closest it gets to being emotional. I think the voice actor does a good job of it. So that part, I'm like, okay, they did kind of good with that. But I'm glad that you're on the other end of like, nah, fuck this scene. This is my time. No,
I have a little more to that, but we'll hold off on that for now as to why. because
The lore deepens.
I did think about it a bit more. So I'm going to come back to that. Let's get to you. What
Okay.
was your initial experience?
So I remember I didn't go see it in theaters. I waited until it came out on Blu-ray, and then I acquired it. Whatever. And then so I acquired it, and then I watched it, and I knew that, yeah. So I knew that this was kind of just riding the Your Name wave, where everyone was kind of like hyping this movie up because it could kind of close enough resemble Your Name, and that I think that played into the hype a bit. They're like, oh, I saw Your Name in theaters, and that was fun. And then I saw A Silent Voice in theaters. That was fun. Makuya came out. That was emotional. And now Pancreas is just entering the chat, like, ready to go and have people cry over it. And I knew that it was, like, not going to be as good. I could just kind of tell based on the description of it that it would not be for me, even though I have had series that are, you know, very dramatic, emotional series that take on really serious subject matters, like, you know, terminal illness, like whatever. And they've like impacted me, but I could just tell from this, whatever, that it was not going to end well. It was not going to end well for me and Pancreas. But then I think me and my friend both watched it the same night separately. And I was like, yeah, so that was kind of worse than I thought it would be. And at first I was like, okay, this is just like normal bad. You know, like you see something, it's bad, but like you don't think about it too much. But then that was at the point where everyone started watching it, and everyone seemed to really like it. And I'm like, did we watch the same film? Like, are we not on the same page about like what we just saw? And then like the discussions that happened kind of compounded, and like I was forced to think about like, why do I really not like this? And I just started like really disliking it more and more the more I thought about it. And then on Twitter, it's especially offensive when you're like, I really hate this film. And you see those like aesthetic anime account tweets post like, you know, which is the best of this one? And it's like Your Name, A Silent Voice, Makuya, and Pancreas. And I was like, how dare you stand where they stood? Like, how dare you put this movie up with these greats? Like, that's just like, and I'm not even like a huge fan of half of those, but I was like, yo, this is crossing a line. This is too far, you know.
I love that
how dare you?
You recognize that, because I know you're not a huge fan of Your Name, and this movie as an example, and this movie is supposed to cater to me, who put Your Name as number 2 of my 3x3 last week, but I was just like, no, not the same.
Like, for context, I think this is actually like a very interesting way of differentiating between a movie that you're like, you liked but don't love, something that you thought was average, and something you hate. Like, there's a very wide scale on the 1 to 10 scale. So like, just to expose myself completely, I gave A Silent Voice a 10. It's like my second favorite anime film. I gave Your Name like a 6, 7. I thought it was decent, but I'm not like super attached to it. I gave Makuya a 5, kind of a hot take, but
sounds
similar
right.
thing.
No,
yeah.
That sounds
okay, you're
right.
with me. And then I get Pancreas a 1. Like, please do not conflate a 5 or a 6 with a 1. Like, a 1 means I really hate this film. Like, I actively find it annoying. It's a lot of it kind of emotionally offends me. Whereas another film that I'm like mid on, or I think is mediocre, that's a completely different ball game. Like, they are not comparable. So like, I know a lot of people take a 5 out of 10 as offensive, and I'm like, no, this is not offensive. That's just the way I feel, like my complete indifference, versus like, I'm going to war. And that's the Pancreas team, is like, we got to go to war now.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, I don't know. It was pretty low there, because I don't equate, like, even if those other movies, if you didn't resonate with them as much, I feel like Pancreas isn't in the same category, at least from my experience. But
yeah,
did that wrap up sort of your initial sort of experience with it? Because you didn't really dive into what bothered you.
So that kind of goes, might be the next thing that might be our next segment of like what really bothers me. So for full transparency, I'm like a very big Clanad fan. Like, I love Clanad. I think it's great, but I do have some, like, I think a lot of other, as they'd call, like, tier bait. Like, I don't like saying cry porn. I think that's kind of stupid, but like that kind of melodramatic series, I don't like vibe with too much. But I guess A Silent Voice would be considered one. I don't consider it one, probably because I like it. But like Clanad and A Silent Voice are the ones that like really hit for me, but a lot don't. But Clanad like really worked for me in a specific way that highlighted things that I enjoy, whereas Pancreas highlighted things I don't enjoy. So like one of the subject matters that Pancreas deals with is terminal illness and how, you know, someone who knows that they are going to die interacts with people around them. And it's a variety of like, do I want people to treat me differently? Do I just want to continue on as normal? Like, you know, but I also want someone to treat me differently because I know I'm not going to have that much time to live. It's like kind of a lot to unpack. Like it's a very serious subject matter. It's emotionally sensitive. And I think we've all had some experience with like death or someone who's been very sick. So in my experience with people who have had either terminal illnesses or chronic illnesses, the one thing that people have had in common is they don't want to be treated differently because of their illness. And I feel like this film was kind of a very immature look at that sensitive subject. And it kind of is like disrespectful to those people who struggle from that. So I couldn't help but have that kind of like real life comparison in my head, thinking of like people who have gone through similar struggles. And then you just kind of see this like bratty waifu being like, I'm going to die, so go to the beach with me kind of thing. I felt like it was just very disrespectful. And as you said, manipulative. Like I did feel like it's kind of manipulative in, you know, a toxic way, just based on the real life experiences I've had. Now, I understand other people haven't had the same experiences, so they're not like obligated to feel the way I do, but I can't like ignore the way I have experienced these issues and be like, you know, this doesn't apply.
Yeah, and I haven't experienced those issues directly as much, so that wasn't my problem with it. But even not having those experiences, I still was not kind of enjoying how she was kind of going about things. At least on my initial viewing, just keeping it to the initial viewing, it just felt like, and again, I don't know if it's the way I, you know, interpreted it or watched it, or you know, my take on it was that she was just being kind of like selfish, like, or just pretty toxic. And I get it, like, you know, she's dying and this is kind of her way of, you know, it's sort of justified because she doesn't want her people to treat her differently, but she can't go to her friends. So she has to impose on this, you know, loner kid that, you know, doesn't know anything and is now kind of roped into having to keep her secret for her, take all this shit from everyone else for it. And it just feels like this whole one-sided take. Like it's not a give and take. It's just take. And then she's just kind of being sort of, she's not making it easier because she's also being very like irresponsible and kind of like, you know, like how you were saying, I forgot the word you said about
manipulative.
You know, like, huh? Manipulative, like dragging him to the beach and kind of like putting him in situations that like make him feel uncomfortable, or like, you know, where he's kind of in a spot where like their relationship for the majority of the movie is in this weird limbo. Like, until he gets slugged out by her ex-boyfriend, that at that point, then she reveals, oh, by the way, this is another, you know, thing you have to kind of deal with for having to keep my secret. Then after that, they start going more in a positive direction in the relationship, having like more meaningful moments. But then that's a montage.
That's what I was going to say. They saved the like most meaningful part of their relationship to montage it. And I'm like, why can't we make this like 10 minutes of the film? Like this a significant part.
And it's funny because I know that was your problem with Your Name.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't even want to compare the Your Name montage to this. That's offensive to Your Name. Your Name had good montages. Like,
yeah, and I didn't have that problem with Your Name because that didn't bother me in Your Name, but here it bothered me because it didn't bother me in the moment. Let me, you know, it was more of me trying to understand why I wasn't sold on this dynamic. Why by the end, when this kid is crying, I know I'm supposed to feel something. I know I'm supposed to be sad with him, but why don't I? Why am I making fun of him asking for permission to cry? You know, so, you know, and that's me trying to understand it. And it's because you don't really see a positive like moment dynamic with them through the movie that makes you feel like this is believable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes to, we got this one comment that I think is fair. Matt, I'm just going to call him Max. They say, saying this is disrespectful because this fictional character is not behaving the way real people do is a kind of take I don't understand. That's a very fair take because I don't think that fictional characters should act the same way real people do. But I do think fictional characters should elicit emotions in a way that you can connect to in real life. And what I'm trying to say is these characters behaving so illogical in their fictional setting, I find so unrealistic that I can't connect to them. So like people want a real connection and they want to see things portrayed authentically for the fictional setting. And I'm explaining why I can't buy into it. Like that's why. And it's my real life experiences have made me realize how unrealistic this fictional dynamic is, which is why I don't have real feelings towards it.
Yeah, I brought this up a little bit last week. It's kind of just, it has to do with breaking immersion. You know, like you're not being sold on it. So if you can't buy into it, you can't, because the movie's intent, this particular brand of movie's intent is to make you cry, is to make you feel something, is to make you think about life. But if you can't be sold on it because you can't, something's breaking your immersion, whether that's that character's actions, then the movie's purpose fails. It doesn't land. It's in that scene where this at its peak, the character is crying. That's supposed to be emotionally, it's built to be emotionally resonant. But as I brought up last week, like Game of Thrones, the last season of Game of Thrones, where you could see the wires pulling the strings behind, you know, like the character. You're not supposed to see that, you know, in the story. You're not supposed to see the makings of the story unravel. You're supposed to just be immersed and feel like you're in this world. You're feeling it with these characters. And part of a big factor with that, besides this main girl's actions, was also, again, not being too sold on their relationship. Because again, for more than half the movie, they're not they don't really have anything that leads you to believe that they have this connection. The movie is sort of spending its time telling you that they do. I don't know.
And I think that's a good transition also into what I think is ultimately probably the biggest issue. Because I could overlook a lot if I liked literally any of the characters. That's a lie. I like the gum dude. The gum dude was cool.
You want some gum?
Got some gum, just an absolute bro. No one even offers gum that much. That's so cool of him.
He got the girl in the end.
Did he? But I thought she was like pushing him off a bit for like
the main girl's friend. Yeah.
Kyoko or whatever.
She said they're dating after exams.
Okay, so that's cool for the gum bro, but I don't know if she's worth waiting. I don't know. She was just like awful. She's like actually just like
genuinely awful.
So first off, I know fictional characters are not like real people, but in a grounded setting like this, in what situation do you keep trying to fight someone your friend is hanging out with? Like chilling at the mall, that's just some random dude who like has done nothing offensive besides kind of sucking and being boring. And she's like rolling up on this dude being like, the fuck is wrong with you? I'm gonna fucking kill you. Like that's her first interaction with him. Yeah. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is this? Like, what is this scenario?
It was really weird. It was just like,
so
why
weird.
Is she being so persistent? Like what? Like she treated him like he was the scum of the earth. Like,
and there's no context for him being the scum of the earth. He's just some quiet kid who reads in the corner and doesn't talk to anyone. They're talking as if he like sold drugs or shit. Like,
well, that's what bothered me more about it. It was like, why does he deserve this? Why does he have to go through this shit because of all this misunderstanding? And this girl, like,
and she won't clear it up with them. She's not like, hey, this is my friend. I'm hanging out with him. Fuck off. That's what the main girl should have said. Like, look, dude, I'm hanging out with my friend. We're eating at the mall. Stop making a scene. You're being a bitch. Like, fuck's wrong with you?
But they pretty much like presented them as she's the popular girl. He's completely unpopular and antisocial. And by virtue, and I saw the theme that they were driving at. They were trying to be like, the whole point is he's supposed to connect to people because it's his own fault for one, not speaking up, two, not reaching out to connect to people. And she does tell him later in the hospital, listen, they wouldn't be spreading these rumors and saying these things about you like you're stalking me or something if you just tried to connect with people.
Yeah, and but I feel like that's weird of her to blame him from that. Like, you're dragging this kid around, and not to defend him being a fucking weirdo, being like, I only connect with fictional things, not real people. Like, okay, that's weird, and like, you're kind of lame, but you know, she's the instigator for all of this, you know. Yeah, if he doesn't want to talk to people, he doesn't have to talk to people. Like, you're forcing him to talk with you, whatever. He's going along with it, fair game, whatever. But like, defend this dude who you're dragging into all these uncomfortable situations because your friends suck ass. Like, no wonder he doesn't want to talk to people. Your friend keeps threatening to kill him every time you guys hang out. Like, I wouldn't want to talk to her. I'd just go read a book too. Like, They just suck.
Yeah, yeah. And there was this whole like sort of I guess it was a misdirect like earlier when they were like, "Oh, why is she hanging out with him? That other guy is much more boyfriend material." Meanwhile, that's actually her ex that they're
Yeah.
pointing out to
And
instead of just
he's toxic. He's stalking her house, and like they obviously have unfinished business. Like, I mean, I'm glad she did stick up for him after that guy punched him. Like, a little too late, but okay. Glad we saw something. But like everyone in this movie sucks except for the gum guy. Like literally everyone is like
yeah. Like by the
sucks
end,
ass.
like I was sort of happy for the main character. You know what? No, we're still sticking to the first viewing, so no, I wasn't. I
you
wasn't
came
happy.
around on him. That's interesting. That's interesting
like,
development.
I wasn't like, oh my God, he's so nice. He doesn't deserve anything. I was just like, okay, you know what? That's nice that he, was able to make friends in the end. He was able to reach out. That's nice. Nice message.
Just
Did it resonate? Like a lot? Not too much. Yeah, I wasn't like,
He kind of still sucks because his first reaction when this girl is like, yeah, I'm going to die. He's like, oh, okay. Like, I'm sorry, but even if you're like the lamest dude of all time, you could be like, I'm sorry to hear that, and then leave.
No. You want to know why he sucks? You want to know why he sucks? You're going to get me started on this?
Yeah. I need to hear this.
Sucks. It isn't just because his first reaction was, well, that was a shitty reaction, mind you. But meanwhile, she was like, oh, he doesn't react to me dying. He's the one.
What a gem. What a gem.
He is the missing, he's the hidden gem. No.
He's the one.
It's that this fucking guy is at a cafe being stood up for 6 hours, just chilling, doesn't think to call, doesn't think to be like,
That's
hey,
so true.
I told you the line of the film. I told you the film's title in a text. You did not respond. What's going on? What's going on? Did not think to check. Just 6 hours later, just happily texting at home until the news comes on. It's like, bro, come on.
Honestly, we should have actually started. We jumped into it too hot, but like we knew this movie was not going to work from the title. Like the title sets it up for failure from the get-go because you already have to explain the nuance behind the title. Like I Want to Eat Your Pancreas is one of the like peak does not translate titles, and you have to go into it with like an explanation about how it means like, oh, if you have something that's wrong with you or like poison, you want to eat that to like take it away from someone. It's an act of love. It's not cannibalism. Like you have to start like every mention of this off with that. And then it's already downhill from there. A silent voice, you're like, damn, what does it mean? What does that mean? It's so mysterious. Or like your name, it's kind of vague, but like, what does it mean? That's fine. Like that could be something romantic. I want to eat your pancreas. Like half the people don't even know what a pancreas does in the body. We're already explaining shit. We're already at the wrong.
Well, it's also spot. That, but it's also one of those titles that you gotta be like, wait, no, it's not cannibalism. Let us explain, because if you don't explain, then it's like, what are you trying to say here? How is that supposed to be romantic? But that's part of it. But also, what did you think about from the beginning, from the get-go? You already know that this girl's gonna die. Like,
I know that's like really hit or miss for people, because some people are like, I know she's going to die, so I don't feel bad. Like it's kind of spoiling the film. I'm not against that as a storytelling technique, because I like a lot of stories where they start off with the ending and then it's interesting to see like how they got there, like the story kind of told as a flashback. Like I'm not inherently against that, but I don't know. I could see if I was into this film and the characters, I could see enjoying that storytelling. I'm not gonna hold that against the film. So I could see it. How about you?
Yeah, no, I think I'm fine with it. It's just the way that it ended up kind of unraveling towards the end. And also on my rewatch, because I was paying careful attention again to give it a fair shot. I noticed they were foreshadowing the shit out of what was going to happen at the end, like for the whole first half. It was like news reports. It was
very much foreshadowed. Like it didn't come out of nowhere. I mean, it did, but it was foreshadowed that it would come out of nowhere.
They were really foreshadowing it. They were really hammering it in the morning. Like, I'm sorry, not in the morning, in the beginning of the movie. Yeah. She was saying lines like, you don't have to appreciate, like she doesn't try to make any particular day special. Every day is kind of like mundane. Like that's why she doesn't force herself to do she doesn't have to do any special thing. Every day is just kind of like a blessing and just living. And then the news reports of people getting stabbed or girls getting stabbed, and then, more foreshadowing on that part. She did say a line about like the young the good
Only
die
the
young
good
or
die
something like
young.
that. Yeah,
So
he's like, I
sad.
don't think you're using that right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Do you think this is might be getting ahead of ourselves, but imagine like you cared about this character, or like just replace her role with the character you care about. Like I know you like Shinobu from Monogatari. Like
hmm
worst example because she's a badass. She's not going down with the stab wound. She does that like whatever.
Yeah.
Worst character, but like imagine that's a character you cared about. If she was in the same circumstances, do you think it's more sad that she died from a stab wound compared to like a terminal illness that would happen in like a year anyway?
So you're saying if it's a character I cared about,
Yeah, who is like in that position. Like, do you think it's sad that she died from a stab wound, or is it just kind of like, okay,
but she did have a terminal illness at the same
yeah, like she
time.
was gonna die anyway, but then she gets stabbed. Are you like moved by that as a narrative decision, or are you like that's just so lame?
I don't know. I'm kind of I don't know where I stand on that. I think because I would care about the character, I would be more torn. Like
Mhm.
like come on, like you could have at least let her like die out. We're already accepting the fact that she's gonna die with the terminal illness, but to just kind of kill her like that even makes it even more gut wrenching. I think
Mhm.
if it's a character I cared about, but then
Yeah.
I can see how it could be lame. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page because I think a lot of the things that people bring up as like their traditional issues with the film, I'm so like I'm not even there on a level of like contemplating if they're an issue or not because I have my own issues and I don't buy into it. So I'm like, yeah, like if she gets stabbed, like, I mean, they throw a twist on it. That's kind of cool, I guess. But I'm just not, I just don't care. So I'm not sure if like, some of the issues are just lost on me. Like, I mean, at least they kind of make it somewhat surprising as to how she like died when we thought she was going to die one way and they switch it up, but I don't know if it's necessarily more sad or more satisfying. I don't
But
know.
but
It's
is
just
it
so weird.
is it because it's her? Like it's not
That's what I'm torn on. Is it just
yeah.
because I don't like her and I think she's poorly written, or is it like the story itself? That's what I'm torn on.
Well, I think we should get into why why you think she's poorly written.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I do want to address someone's question in
Yeah.
the chat, someone's comment / question from K74. Where is the line drawn between an anime being designed to make you cry as opposed to the emotional response being a part of what the anime is trying to convey? Is 3 Gatsu or Sangatsu cry bait if I don't cry?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I don't really like calling things. I don't like seriously calling things tear bait. Like, I kind of do it in like a way to describe the certain melodramatic emotional drama that these shows fall into, because I don't like saying like, oh, it's super manipulative, because to a certain extent, every story is trying to make you feel an emotion, whether that's hype, sadness, excitement, laughter, like entertainment. Like, they're trying to make you feel a certain way. So, I mean, if a story makes you cry and you're able to buy into it, I think that's perfectly valid. But I don't think it's like, I mean, I guess if it fails, it feels like bait because you didn't fall for the bait. But like, I don't think there's anything wrong with a series trying to be emotional and trying to make you cry on itself. We're just like that. At least I'm coming from a place of I'm criticizing the way this tried to go about it, not that it tried to make me feel emotional, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also, for my answer for that would be the problem for me. And I said something along these lines earlier, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but pretty much it's, if it's designed to make me cry, I don't want to be paying attention to the design of it. I don't want to be seeing the design. I want to just be immersed in it enough that I could be like, okay, maybe I didn't cry, but I'm still with it. I'm still feeling the story. I'm not just seeing like, oh, I see what they're doing here. Okay, I can kind of, because then I'm just paying attention to kind of metatextually what they were doing as opposed to within it. So
yeah, exactly. Which is why if you don't see the lines like you were talking about for this film and you were just like, yeah, I was immersed, I bought into it and it made me cry and I had a good experience with it, where it's like, good on you. We're not on the same page, but like, good for you. Glad you got what this movie intended, good for you.
yeah, we're just soulless people.
We are. Meanwhile, you have Your Name as like your second favorite series. So
yeah. So do you want to get into, I think we need to talk about her because I think she's a big problem of why we feel the way we do. I think that she's, because it's not so much the guy as it just is her.
He is a problem too, but he's
a problem, but I think she's more of the problem. But
yeah, like if I think of who's more of a problem, she comes first. Maybe her friend comes first. Her friend really has zero redeeming qualities. Like I think she's like a terrible person, terrible character. I don't understand her, and think she's a brat. But I do think she is a problem, and my memories of the first time around, I was like, oh yeah, she just sucks. She's kind of manipulating him. And then some people I've talked to were like, no, she's not manipulative. She's just inspiring him. And I was like, I think she literally, after he says, no, I don't want to do this, she's like, yeah, but I'm going to die. So we got to like live life, fam. And so the second time around, I was paying attention to see if she actually did that. And I took a couple screenshots of times where she literally brings up she's going to die as a way to get him to do things. But it said in this like really playful way. But I'm like, you still said like, I'm going to die. So we have to go do this.
Yeah. It's that in itself is like she's cornering him and putting him in a position that kind of like takes advantage of his, I guess, good nature to, you know, keep her secret, do the things she wants. And it's like, you don't get this feeling like at some point he comes around, but for the most part, it's not like he's sort of enjoying himself.
Well, that's what's weird is because he doesn't show off a good nature at first. Like she says she's going to die and he's like, okay. He doesn't even say like, I'm sorry, like that's tough or like, you know, good luck. He's just like, okay, bye. Like he doesn't have a response. So he's not even like this kind dude who she's taking advantage of. She's just kind of like bullying him into having a response. And he kind of like holds off for as long as possible. But so she's like, okay, yeah.
So it's more that he's more of like a doormat, and that's why she's taking advantage of the fact, well, he's not going to push me away, and I need someone that, you know, will not care about my existence. So, you know.
Yeah, it's just like so odd. Like I could have understood the story more if he was just this very nice, easygoing dude who didn't have friends, and she was kind of like, well, you don't have friends anyway. I'm going to bully you into it. That would have created more of an interesting dynamic if he had a personality to contrast hers, like anything, like literally anything to his character to contrast hers. Yeah. That could have been a difference maker.
Yeah.
But by getting back to why she sucks, yeah, I mean, she starts off kind of like pushing him into hanging out with her because she's dying. And I pulled up the screenshots I took. She, like, one of the first conversations is she's like, me, my friend, and you should come back here. Hey, give me your contact info. And he's like, nah, I'm good. And she's like, it's just for the short while until we die. We have to make sure we keep close contact. And it's said in like this really cutesy waifu-y way, you know, a waifu-y kind of, you know, kawaii way. But like when you look at the actual words, she's like, nah, I want to keep hanging out until we die. You have to come hang out with me. And naturally, this guy could say no. If he wanted to, he could say no. But it's like when you actually are sitting there and thinking like, how manipulative is it to be like, I'm dying and I'm going to force my, like the potential trauma of me dying onto this random person who I had nothing to do with before today.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of weird, right? Yeah. Like that's kind of fucked up.
Well, that was, you know, my big problem with it because she barely knows him. And then she's just putting this all on him. It's like, dude, like why, you know, and it's again, trying to be justified. Well, you know, she's dying and she can't tell anyone else because then they won't treat her, you know, they'll treat her differently and all that stuff. But,
I mean, realistically, she could tell them they would treat her differently, but she could tell her friends.
But yeah. And if she had told them, then we wouldn't have gotten her best friend's emotional reaction at the end where she just yells at the guy, makes him feel like shit. It's like, you could have told me, I would have quit my club. I would have quit whatever to go spend time being with my best friend.
Yeah. And I think what I realized the second time around, not sure if I'm jumping the gun, but it's so very clearly created to emphasize that she exists to inspire this guy to live his life. So the reason all of this is happening is not for the sake of highlighting, you know, what it's like to die with an emotional illness. It's like, here's this person who's dying for the sake of this nothing MC dude who doesn't get a name until the last minute to inspire him to live life. So she's trying to inspire you to live your life. That's why she exists. That's what it is. That's obvious. It's very obvious. And as you said, you can see the strings. Like why it was created for that matter. And yeah.
I don't want to do this, but on my second time watching it, I did really feel like the MC is like this audience surrogate
Self-insert.
for otaku.
And that's emphasized by him not having a name until the last minute. Like they have him, like he tells her his name, and that's supposed to be like, look, he never had an identity until she forced him to live at the end. Like that's when he became a person. That's when he like realized his life had purpose or whatever. Like, and you know, if it was well done, I could almost respect it, but it's just so clearly a self-insert. I mean, he says he enjoys fiction more than reality. Okay, I see the otaku lean there. Like, you know, I have fun imagining what other people think of me. Like, come on. Yeah, they're not subtle.
They just traded out they made him a little more cultured. They traded out anime with books. You know, he actually genuinely reads books, literature.
He just reads books.
Yeah. But I definitely saw that. I mean, on my second rewatch, are we jumping the gun, getting into our rewatch?
I don't mind. I think we could do that. I think we could just jump right in.
We've kind of got, you know, is there anything else about her that makes her poorly written? You know,
I guess we could get into the scene where she asks him to come back to her house.
Oh, God.
See, the fact that people have like two issues with the film, that scene and the like stabbing thing. And those I'm not even like, I don't even get close to those when I'm explaining my issues. Like I haven't even gotten that far, and we still have like more to unpack with like what this is.
I remember vividly that scene in the movie theater. When I watched it the first time, I was already like, fuck this movie.
Yeah, I think that if you didn't have any issues beforehand, then you get that scene and you're like, I think I'm good. I think I'm good here.
Yeah. So that scene, I think that was probably the epitome of like the emotional manipulativeness. And it also did not make him like, it didn't show him in a good light either.
I don't understand the point of that scene. I do. Well, I think I understand what they were.
Well, let's describe the scene in question for people that either have not watched the movie or, you know, as we said, we're going to spoil. So basically she invites him back to her house to, I don't know what it was, to help her with something.
Oh, she was going to lend him the book. She was going to lend him her favorite book. So she baited him with his only hubby.
Right. They go over, and she's only read like one book, which is like The Little Prince. And it's the only book he's never read. Yeah, it's a children's book. Famous one.
Yep. I thought he like did read it, but was like pretending he didn't. I'm not sure if that's like the read of it, but like he said he didn't read it. I'm sure he did. Whatever.
Yeah. So he goes back to her place, and then for some reason they're just playing video games, and he's like, okay, I thought you were just lending me the book. Like, why were you just playing video games? She also baited him by saying like, oh, no one's going to be home. Hey.
She's been hardcore flirting with him their entire relationship, like goading him into like telling her that she's the cutest in their class, that she would want to do stuff with him. And he's been doing this for the whole series. Like that's been so loaded.
Problem with it though. Yeah. Like it feels like she's purposely leading him on.
Yeah. 100%.
And it doesn't feel real, and that's why you question it. And then that scene, so she brings him back, and then they play video games, and after that she like pushes him up against the bookshelf. And she's just like, one of the things I want to do before I die is something naughty with someone that's not my boyfriend and that I don't love. So it's like
double slap in the face. Okay. Like,
yeah. And then, and she just starts coming on to him. And then
she's like, lols, JK.
Yeah. Right before she like kisses him.
It's just a prank, bro.
Yeah. Psych, bro.
Yeah.
She pulls back. And then he gets so frustrated because it's like, what are you doing with people's feelings?
Mm-hmm.
And then he just pushes her onto the bed, like grabs her wrists, and then it's just not a good look at all.
And then because it's almost like he's gonna like force himself on her, and she's like, "Oh, what are you doing? I was just joking." And then she starts crying, and then he's like, "Okay." He realized he went too far, and then he like flees her house, and that's when he runs into her ex-boyfriend, who punches him for like hanging out with her, the usual shit, like whatever. And then she comes out and they make up and they apologize. But you're like, what was the point? What was that?
Yeah.
What was the point of that?
Like, it just didn't make either of them look good. And then after that, the point was, it brought their relationship to a head where they finally, I don't know,
Are
because
honest with each other. I think they're
honest-
supposed to like let down both their walls, be honest about each other. Like that was supposed to be the tension that like broke, and now they're like let down their walls and they're being honest. But like no one wanted it to happen like that. I was like,
yeah,
no one liked that.
yeah, it got them to be honest with each other, and it got them to be like, okay, we want to, we do want to spend time with each other. We actually, like being with each other, even though you're gonna die. And then after that, they
Montage.
have like, what was that?
Montage.
Yeah,
Like
they have the speed run of the good moments, which we weren't treated to any of those, by the way. We just saw some pictures. That's kind of it. But I think that scene just, which is the case for everyone, which is the consensus, culminates like my issues with her. I don't know if there was more to it. Because after that, it's the montage. Then she ends up in the hospital, and then they have the fireworks scene, and then that's it. That's kind of that's their relationship.
And like, I feel like I definitely could feel differently about this film if we had like a 50-50 split between like the buildup and then like the good moments. Like if we were treated to like more moments of them having a wholesome relationship where they got to know each other, I would probably feel differently.
So because we're talking about this right now, I'm going to go back to this person's comment, Dur33.
Yeah.
I know this could sound disingenuous, but what do you guys think are the routes that the story could have gone so it could have worked as an emotional narrative in the end?
And I don't think that sounds disingenuous at all, because I think it's really productive to think like, okay, what could have happened differently to make this work? And I do think it's a combination between giving him a personality, making her less pushy in like such a weird way, and also, as we said, like showing us more of the good moments of their relationship so we could feel like we have something to get attached to.
Yeah, because like, again, I don't want to bash this movie just to bash it. I'm actually trying to understand. And so I think with that, this is a good transition to get into the rewatch.
So we rewatched
last night.
Yeah, we both rewatched it. And I guess, this is, so what did you find on your rewatch?
So interestingly enough, I went to go rewatch it last night, and all I could remember was this, one of the things I could remember is this permission to cry scene, towards the end. I can't take it seriously, all this stuff. And then when I go to rewatch it, and I'm like, I just put it on and all that stuff, I realized one thing that I just did not realize that probably could have affected my whole view of the film from the beginning, and I didn't even notice, is that I watched it dubbed. I watched it in English, because back in February 10th, 2019, we couldn't make it to the Japanese sub showing because that was on a weekday. That was on a Thursday, February 7th. So the only other available day, because they only do 2 screenings, was the dubbed one, and we went to go see it on a Sunday. So we watched it in English, and I think part of the problem, part of why I found the characters even more annoying and I was more checked out, was because of the English. And
I don't know how you did that.
That was my theory. That was my theory. And this is not to rag on dubbed stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But like when I went to go watch it in the Japanese, I'm like, oh, I wonder if this will make a difference. And then I didn't find the girl as annoying, not as I remembered. I found the character, the main guy, more of a recluse, more like it fit more, like his voice fit more of his antisocial persona. And I was like, okay, I get this. And when I watched that scene where he asked like if he could cry or whatever, I felt like it was better delivered. I didn't think it was as easy to make into a punching bag, because and I'm like, oh, that's why we were making fun of that scene, and that's why we remember it as permission to cry, because of the English and the way it was said and the way it was delivered. Like it was just, he just sounded completely different. I was like, okay, so that was part of the factor when I rewatched it in Japanese, that I didn't find it as bad, as annoying.
And that was my suspicion as to why I was so like okay with it, is because I think the voice acting is really well done, especially in that scene. But I think to your point, I think we both have enjoyed dubs in our time. I think it's fair. Are you like predominantly sub, but you'll make an exception for some dubs. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I'm predominantly sub. I'd say like
Okay.
90, like 95%. But there's
Yeah.
like a few dubs
Yeah.
to me that I stand by that have
Yeah.
stood out to me. So
100%. Same with me. Like almost the exact same percentage. So like, you know, we're not dub haters. We're just picky with dubs. But something that I've found is like, I'm not watching dubs of like slice of life series, emotional series, and like I'm not watching it with kids. Like they're close enough to kids because I just don't think a lot of the nuances of like Japanese translate well to English. I think it's just really difficult to make something like that work. Like that scene of like, I know I'm asking the wrong person, but can I cry now? I just don't think we have an American equivalent of that scene for them to really work well with that. So I could see that just not working at all.
Yeah. Like one of the other things of watching it in Japanese is I was actually able to pick up on a lot of the nuances, which I don't think I paid it. Like I didn't really catch in the original in the English when I watched it dubbed, like the whole thing with their names and meaning spring tree and cherry blossom and like all of those things that were said in the beginning did come full circle at the end, specifically with the stuff that had like the meanings and the Japanese and all that stuff, which I don't know if, again, it's harder to kind of get that nuance in the English because you're having to translate it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's just kind of like, not even like to shit on the dub or anything. There are just some things that don't translate well. And it's sometimes better to go back to the source to see them, how they hold up.
If you can watch Prison School dubbed,
I heard that's nice.
It's really good. And I actually clipped that scene. I clipped the English of this scene. If you want to listen to it, if you could tell me if you think like what this sounds like. So
oh, you did. Oh my god!
I clipped it. I clipped it.
Oh my god!
Just 1 second. All right, let me know if you guys can hear this.
Ma'am.
What is it?
Sorry. I know this probably isn't the right time for it, but do you mind if I go ahead and cry?
I don't know.
You didn't include him crying. You didn't. We couldn't hear the tears.
No, it was just gonna be like, just the whole him bawling scene.
Okay. I want to say, first off, I think that dub voice actor did a really good job with the material. I think
the chat says it's very low. Should I play it again?
Yeah, I might just be like that.
Right,
yeah, play it again.
Crank it up. I'm gonna crank it up, and then YouTube's gonna flag me. But it's all good.
Ma'am.
What is it?
Sorry. I know this probably isn't the right time for it, but do you mind if I go ahead and cry?
I don't know.
Okay. I hope everyone could hear that.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys heard it.
It's supposed to be quiet, but I want to say I think that dub voice actor is doing a really good job, but the scene just doesn't translate well to Western audiences. Like we don't have an equivalent situation in which someone is asking if it's appropriate for them to cry because we're not as stoic as Japanese families are.
It's interesting because in the Japanese, I just noticed this. The mom just nods her head, doesn't say anything, no sound, just, you can barely notice it. And he just kind of goes ahead and lets it out. In English, she says, she says, she actually makes a verbal affirmation. So he does get the authorization and then he proceeds to cry.
Access granted, tear ducts. But I just feel bad because I think it sounds like he tried really hard. I think it's really heartfelt. And I think he's showing a lot of talent as a voice actors. I could not do that. But I just think the scene doesn't translate well at all. We don't have that in Western films. We don't have someone being like, hey, can I cry now? We just don't have that. And I think that's a very Japanese thing, which is why sometimes dubs just don't really work given this content, given the subject matter, So I think I'm not going to hate on the dub, not going to hate on the Pancreas dub team. I think that's just some localization doesn't work.
Listening to it now, it makes sense. I think the Kage Pro said, I thought he literally said something like permission to cry. So I think, do you mind if I go ahead and cry is the best they could have done? Yeah. No, I agree. I just think I was so checked out of the movie at that point that it didn't hit me that for years I thought it was permission to cry. Like I literally thought that was the line from the jokes we did after. Because
sometimes your jokes rewrite what happened because they're so much more memorable. I think I've had that with a couple series.
But
where
that just shows me that like I really was not. This resonant scene was just not. It didn't hit me at all. And the other thing about this, because again, I came out of this rewatch not hating it as much, not feeling fully attached. Maybe still like this is kind of bland. But not like, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see what they did. I saw that everything kind of went full circle. He got friends, the meaning of the gum, and he finally accepted the gum. The guy, you know.
Could they have picked anything more than gum? Like, come on.
Yeah. Hey, do you want some gum? He's like, you know what? I think I'll have some gum. It's like, oh, he made a friend.
Gum bro, absolute goat.
Yeah. So,
absolute Chad.
Like,
Chad.
I got that. And then, like, afterward, I was like, no, Onimaru, no. You cannot give in. No.
Don't give in.
Don't do this. But then I had to really think about it because there was something about the film that still just, I wasn't really attached to. I'm like, what is it? And it was bothering me. And it really is that their relationship, part of it is that their relationship isn't too much sold to you as a viewer, at least to me. And it's also, they don't really sell you, like, they don't make her disease too believable because there's only like 2 points in the film where it becomes real for the main character, but then he kind of just like forgets. Like you don't see her, you know, really suffering from it aside from her hospital visit.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make because it reminds me of another series, Your Lie in April, which also deals with a similar subject matter. And I have very like middling feelings on Your Lie in April. I think I gave it a 6. I respect some scenes. I don't enjoy others, whatever. I have like milquetoast takes on Your Lie in April. But the one thing I could give it credit for is they really do show the crippling aspects of her illness, like her falling and getting hurt, her at the hospital, telling him like how she's afraid to die. Like, you know, they really do highlight the fear and emotion that she felt. And I feel like they covered it in a very respectful way. You know, I feel like that was done well. And yeah, it was dramatic, but I don't feel like they were doing it in an exploitative way. Don't know why I couldn't say that. But, you know, I like the way they handled that. And we didn't see that in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't really go into showing you that. The only moment that felt real was him just stumbling on her, you know, pills and kind of syringes in her bag in the hotel room. But besides that, she was like, so like kind of chipper and like full of energy throughout most of the film. And you could say like it, you know, she was putting on a facade, but as she was getting worse, it should have actually made her body like break down a bit more where she couldn't really keep that up, or at least
and we
like,
could have mourned her, like if they showed her like having less energy, we could have mourned the sense of like energy she had at the beginning of the film.
Like even afterward, like we looked up like pancreatic cancer and the symptoms of it afterward, and like she shouldn't have been jumping around she shouldn't be able to if she actually did have it. And I get that it's a movie and it's a film, but I'm saying this would have helped its case in selling it. But then I like that you bring up Your Lie in April because that's another series I had to think to in order for comparison. It dealt sort of with the same subject matter in terms of a character having an illness and, you know, the other guy being in love with her. But I felt more compelled by their dynamic because and I say this because I know this is an anime film, so there are constraints.
Yeah, exactly.
In the time limit. But for the main character Kosei, you know his backstory. You kind of get treated to kind of what's his trauma and why he is the way he is and what he's dealing with now. And then they make Kaori be this like kind of charming girl that's also really talented, and she's actually inspiring to him. And that they sell you on kind of like what she sort of brings to him.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's more compelling.
And there's another thing that they bond over besides just like, you know, his trauma and her illness. Like they have a subject matter that they share common interest with. Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I had to really think on this, is that this movie spends a lot of time telling you instead of showing you. Because in the whole hospital scene, she's telling him, you know, and it's really nice stuff. It really makes you think, you know, about like, because he asked her, what does life mean to you? And she's telling him all about like life is with, you know, being with other people. Your existence is defined by who you interact with. I'm like, this is all good, but she's telling me this.
Yeah.
Like it'd be different if they sold us on these scenes and we were seeing it throughout the movie, kind of like lingering in it and then like feeling what she's saying. And then as opposed to just her telling me at the end, which is also kind of the whole flashback scene. Sorry, the whole cherry blossom scene when he's at the mom's house.
Yeah.
And he's being told all of this by the memory of her.
That's
It's a lot of-
something. Oh, sorry. That's something I was going to get into, but I'm glad you brought that up. That was kind of like an issue I had the second time around.
Yeah, and I had this theory like about it, and I wasn't sure, but then it was really cemented when I was talking about it with my fiance this morning, and we were just like, okay, listen, I think the movie does a lot of telling, it doesn't sell you on it. She's like, no, I think it's that the disease, they didn't do a good job of portraying it and whatever. And then she's like, yeah, like it's like a walk to remember. And I'm like, what? And she's like, a walk to remember. Like, I haven't seen that. It's like, you haven't seen a walk to remember? And then we just started arguing. A walk to remember. And she's just like, yeah, the Mandy Moore movie. Like, listen, I haven't seen any Mandy Moore movie where she's not a villain. Like if she's a protagonist, I've seen like the first 5 minutes and I've never seen the rest. That's me and Mandy Moore movies. But pretty much we got into what that movie's about, and that's actually like, oh, it legit is like kind of like Pancreas, like the whole setup of it, which is main character in Mandy Moore's character has leukemia, and the roles are switched. So the main guy is the popular one.
Yep.
She's the unpopular one. Did you watch it?
I know the premise, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, like, long story short, him being with her, she ends up dying. Spoiler, sorry.
Yeah, understandable. Could see that coming.
Yeah, she ends up, they end up spending time together and all that stuff. And then by the end of it, him being with her, like, kind of changes him because he's like this bad boy. And then by the end, it's like he's like a doctor.
He found meaning in life. Yeah.
Yeah, and all of that. And that's kind of, that's the movie. And then, she dies from her leukemia and all
Well,
that
I remember
stuff.
the one quote from it. You have to promise that you won't fall in love with me. And he's like, okay, easy. And then he does, of course. Yeah.
But like, and then I was like, okay, do I have to freaking skim through this movie? So I did right before this for research. And then like there was a specific scene like in the middle, like maybe it has the same runtime as Pancreas. So now we can't even argue too much about the limitations of the runtime. So in the middle of this movie, you can see him falling for her. They're on their first date. They have a successful date. He's clearly now slowly becoming more and more into her. They have that date, and it's like you see the good times unravel. And then I just kind of wikied a little bit of the rest. They have one more date, and then after that, she reveals because also he doesn't know. So it's not even from the beginning. He finds out later after, slowly falling in love with her and she falls in love with him that she has leukemia, and then him dealing with it and then her progressively getting more and more sick. And so I pointed to that middle of this movie, same runtime. I'm like, I'm already sold on his relationship. Like I'm already I'm not even watching all of it, but I can see why, I could feel why he would be devastated as to losing her, because this is more like his feelings are a little more cemented here. Yeah.
So would you say it's kind of like the similar concept executed better with a few different changes?
Yeah, I think so. I think, it's definitely really sappy, but it's like, it's done well because it's believable, I think.
Yeah. I think this is a cool, like, alternative take from Mandy in chat that she says that she had a similar experience at her age, being diagnosed with a TI. I related to her crying out for someone to talk about death who won't always try to change the subject or say sorry. Sorries always hurt. I think that is actually like a really interesting aspect of this film where, like, at the beginning, she wanted someone who didn't just show sympathy. And I was like, they're almost onto something good here. Like if they could just show someone who like had their own issues going on, but like their own solidified personality as to why they weren't going to say like sorry every time there was a sympathetic situation, I think it would have made the dynamic a lot more interesting. Because I was like, you guys almost have something here, but you don't. But I definitely appreciate her sharing that and, giving us that alternative perspective that we don't have.
Yeah, she also had a follow-up. Using her illness to get things sucks, but I did relate to her morbid sense of humor as a coping mechanism.
Yeah, like her just being like, well, got to do it before I die. I did appreciate those kind of like small jokes. Like I was like, yeah, that's kind of like a quirky way of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. And then, so I talked about how I felt about it
Yeah.
after the rewatch. What about you?
Well, I have one more quick question for you. I think a lot of times, yeah, hugs, hugs for Mandy. Love Mandy. I wanted to say, I wanted to ask you this because, I feel like a lot of times when we watch like anime films, it's really easy to kind of like forget this demographic and, the kind of audience that it's targeted towards. And I'm not saying that like because it's targeted towards a certain audience, we could like overlook certain things, but just to keep things in perspective. But, A Walk to Remember, everyone remembers that as like this, teen drama. No one's kind of saying like, A Walk to Remember should be held to the same degree as like The Godfather,
Oh, no,
like,
no, definitely not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you think if we think of something like I Want to Eat Your Pancreas in the same tier as like A Walk to Remember, compare that to something like, okay, if we consider, let's say Spirited Away as the godfather of anime, just in terms of acclaim, most people like it. It's the only anime film to have won an Oscar.
Is that the Ghibli film you just watched?
No, I saw it a couple of days ago, but no, it's not the same one. But just something that has that same level of recognition and same level of accolades. If we think about those in different tiers, do you think it kind of justifies Pancreas a bit more, or is it still like they're anime films? Like you got to deliver on what you're trying to do.
You mean, okay, so you're saying if it wasn't revered as it kind of seems like it is, putting on the same level as Godfather or Spirited Away, being 69 on the Mal top 100.
Yeah. No longer anymore. I think it's at like 74, but it was at 69, which is our magic number to remember.
if it was nowhere in the top 100, I think I'd be like, okay,
yeah,
right, whatever,
Yeah, because I had this with I remember I was watching a Bunny Girl Senpai, and I was like, Bunny Girl Senpai, I could just see watching this on like the CW as like Pretty Little Liars tier, like obviously made for a teenage audience. It's just something you pop on and like maybe you don't think too much of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, in this mindset, I'm like, yeah, I could like see this move. I could see this just being like a fun teenage thing. And like, I'm obviously too old to be watching these things, even though I do enjoy some teen drama, teen action, whatever. Like, if I think about it in this term, in this equivalent, I can understand the appeal more. But then I'm like, yeah, but I'm not comparing like Pretty Little Liars to like The Sopranos. They're trying to be two different things. So like, can't fault them for that. But like,
I was watching that last night, by the way.
Oh, nice.
I needed a palate cleanser after.
Yeah. So like
Sopranos, not Pretty Little Liars.
Yeah. But it's kind of like once you kind of like take a step back and see it as more than just like anime film, and you're like, okay, in anime, there's like, so you got like Akira, Ghost in the Shell, those types of like serious sci-fi things that have been like acclaimed for years. And then you have like Pancreas, which is like, it's like A Walk to Remember. I mean, like, I don't think you'd compare A Walk to Remember to like super serious sci-fi films that have like changed the medium. Sorry,
Blade Runner.
Yeah, like we're not going to do that.
Like the funniest thing, I just had this thought, don't mean to derail, but like a ton of anime directors have like cited Blade Runner as a serious influence for a lot of their works, sci-fi works. So it'd be hilarious if one of them was just like A Walk to Remember.
Yeah, exactly.
That inspired me. And hey, if it did, kudos.
Good on you. Yeah.
Yeah. But that would really surprise me.
Yeah, so that was something that I've just taken like a step back and thinking of like, okay, not saying this to demean everything because we all like our Walk to Remembers. Like, it's just such a different objective demographic, like so different from like so many other things that we're grouping together.
But this is such like an interesting part of the conversation, like, because it's kind of goes back into what we were talking about last week with like taste and kind of like just like in our minds, we do have this distinction somewhere of, this is like good storytelling and or like this is like top tier, like cream of the crop storytelling, like, masterpiece level. And this is more like, kind of your popcorn sort of, and either can be part of your favorites. You could still enjoy, A Walk to Remember could still be your favorite over The Godfather. Your Godfather might not be in your top 10. That's just, that's fine.
100% fair.
But there is a distinction that we have in our minds of there's this level, the applauded by critics, and there's this other column. I'm making hand gestures, but these are supposed to be columns.
Yeah. Yeah. we're both very hand gesture heavy. My mom is really bad with it, but I've adopted some of it.
Yeah, no, I've whole life I'm known for my hand gestures, and then
I don't know what to do with my hands. Thank you, Talladega Nights. Another goat for the list.
yeah.
Yeah, but I guess
Yeah, I legit also, full disclosure, I had a walk to remember summary open here on my other tab just in case I needed to pull it up for evidence of how it could have been done.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's fair, and I think it's also like I wonder how much of the cultural differences play a part in it, but I'm not sure because
Yeah,
some things work well.
Yeah, I do want to account for that because it could also be like that's how realistically in Japanese culture maybe like a dynamic between someone that's more of like a recluse sort of would act, you know, maybe he would act like that, and there's a more extroverted kind of girl that's a little pushy, maybe, you know, and then that would be what the dynamic would be, you know.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I guess getting back on track. So the second time I saw it, you know, the first time I mentioned, I know people have issues with my take on the first time I mentioned it, where I feel like there's that level of manipulation and like kind of doing a disservice to people who suffer from chronic illnesses or terminal illnesses. And I kind of, the first time my takeaway was like, you know, it's kind of exploitative and I don't like it. And it's just kind of yucky. The second time around, I definitely feel a lot less harsh about it because I do feel like it's just so incompetent that they don't have those kinds of like, you know, those kinds of like negative intentions from it. So, on one hand, I feel a lot less hateful towards it, but I do feel like it is just very bad, like poorly written, poorly presented, poorly thought out. So I'm not sure if that makes people feel better or worse, but I think, you know, I feel a lot more grounded in my criticisms and a lot less emotional. So for my scale, this is like, okay, it's a bit less of a 1 out of 10 and a bit closer to a 2 out of 10. So, you know, you win it, but what cost?
I think mine is a little closer to, I don't know, a 3 out of 10. Maybe it went up a point, maybe 4 out of 10. There's things I could appreciate a little more because, like, would you say it's poorly written if everything is sort of set up in the beginning? What?
You just said, would you say it's poorly written? And I'm like, yes. You didn't even.
It just ends there.
Yeah.
If everything that was set up in the beginning did kind of come back, you know, at the end and was addressed with a neat little bow, and you know, it sort of.
It was addressed with a bow, but like, I mean, what are we talking about? Like, you know, this is kind of like, remember how foreshadowing does not inherently make something good if like shit is foreshadowing shit, you know? Like,
oh God.
You know, like, yeah, they foreshadowed the plot twist, but if we still don't think the plot twist is good, that doesn't inherently make it better. You know, Getting back to Game of Thrones season 8 of like, they subverted our expectations, but at what cost? So
at what cost? She got stabbed in the chest, not even in the never mind.
Ooh, what if she was stabbed in the pancreas? That's kind of interesting.
Like that would be more, you know, to the show's
I'd probably laugh at
title,
that and appreciate the detail.
But, you know,
I'd appreciate the detail to that coming
like,
full
I don't know.
circle.
Like if they were gonna have her die like that, you know, they could have like what it could have been. If they wanted to do a twist like that, I would have been like, she walks out, she texts him, hey, just leaving the house, and then she just collapses. She dies earlier than, you know, than they had told her, and then that was it. She just collapsed and died, you know, and then that was like, all right, cool. I can, well, not cool, but I can live with that. That kind of is what we expected. It's a little sad. It's a little gut wrenching. She didn't get to see that final text or whatever.
Do you think that would have been better or worse? Because I think they said at the end that she did see his text that he wants to eat her pancreas.
Oh, she did.
Yeah. Do you think it would have been better or worse if she didn't see that text?
I mean, I think it would have been worse. Because
like as a narrative decision.
Yeah, like it would have been just more heart-wrenching, but like I don't know. I think it would have been worse because then what was supposed to alleviate him or feel better,
give him closure.
Was that she saw the text and she set it back in her own note and it brought everything full circle, you know. Yeah. Because then if she didn't even see the text, it's like, all right, well, you know. Yeah. Now she'll never know, and then that just sucks.
Agreed. That's a good segue because you mentioned before, you know, probably a walk to remember ago, how the end kind of is like, I think this segment where I think she's supposed to be in the Little Prince art style. And that's when he's like reading through her book, her diary of like, first he reads through her death living with death diary. I don't want to call it a death diary. I
Living
feel like
with
that's
dying.
living with dying diary.
Also,
He's
in Walk to Remember, she does also have like a to-do list or some book.
bucket
like,
list.
Yeah, like things of what she wants to do.
Okay, so that's a thing. Yeah, but like I think when he's reading through it and they're kind of recapping everything, I realized that like this movie has a lot of recapping of events, like multiple times, both visually, both them talking about stuff. Like there's not that many events going on that we need to recap every little moment. That's just my take, and I feel like you might feel the same way because we're kind of itching for more, more of the happy times with them. And like we're not even recapping the happy times that we got montage. Like I would have been so much more down to just skip to like the letter she left to him instead of like recapping everything we went through again, just from her point of view.
Yeah.
And I think that's like an issue I have with the film is like not enough new content and a lot of reiterating of old content.
Yeah, like again, there wasn't enough time spent with them in the good times to make you believe it. And then I do want to ask you though, 'cause this is in my mind, like slightly more about stories than specifically I want to eat your pancreas, but like because it's not the fact that it had like a sad ending, I don't typically always enjoy sad endings, but not everything has to have a happy ending, but when is a sad ending just like unnecessary, like it doesn't do anything for you, and when is it actually like, because I think here was going for it's sad and it is this way because it's meaningful, like
bittersweet kind of.
Yeah.
Gives,
what is when do you say like that actually is necessary? When does that work?
Well, I do think the ending for this story works. Like, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the way this story ended. I just think I was never invested. So I'm like, okay,
Well,
ending.
I mean, like also her getting stabbed.
Yeah, like
because isn't that part of it too?
Yeah, that's like the whole like, oh, live every day like it's your last because you never really know. But then I guess it's like double sad because she was gonna die anyway. So it's like she had so little time, but then that was even taken from her.
I felt like
I guess that's the implication.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
that was the end sentence.
Like I felt like that was like thematically they were trying to do two things there, like at the same time. And I felt like I wish they would have just committed to one. Like having her just like we knew she was gonna die, just having him like play out like the actual happy moments with her, whatever, until she died, and then he would have changed because of it, but they wanted to kind of make it different. Because then maybe the director thought, or whoever, the writer, that if it didn't go down the way it did, she would have just died and he wouldn't have ended up reaching out to other people. Because like the way she died forced him to try to reach out to her friend and reach out to her mom and, kind of like bring him out of his shell and not kind of rely on just spending all his time with her, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird look because it's like she inspired him to go talk to other people because it was such a compounded tragic death. Like, but I don't know, like, it's also kind of weird too. I'm wondering if she was going to die anyway, do you want to tell her best friend who's kind of dealing with her sudden death to be like, by the way, she also had an illness and was going to die anyway? Like, I don't know. I just feel like the whole thing is kind of like a huge question mark. And I don't really know if it would be better to have any alternatives. Like, I'm just kind of.
That moment with her friend on my rewatch was sort of just like a giant like twist of the knife. Just like, hey, by the way, you don't have to feel too bad. She was already dying. And like, what? She didn't tell me? Like, why do you know?
And it's also kind of like, I guess he was telling her because the girl wanted them to both be friends afterwards. So like, it does make a lot of his actions make sense in context. But I don't think it makes her feel better about her friend who just died.
No,
like that would make her feel worse. But
it wasn't any consolation. It was just like, that she spent all her time with you, telling only you these things. And yeah,
actually, I would definitely feel worse knowing my friend couldn't trust me by telling me that she was going to die.
Well, also, and then also the realization too that when she dies and she has the funeral, it kind of cements the fact that no one will now know that she had this illness unless he tells them. Because now it'll just be like, well, she just got stabbed. So why would they even need to know?
And I guess in a way that's kind of cool because she won't be defined by her illness, which is something that she obviously didn't want to do. Yeah. So like, I guess she's left with a better legacy. But it's still kind of weird to be like power scaling the ways she could have died. Like, I feel like that's a weird takeaway for all of us to have. Be like, well, would it have been better if she just died from her illness, or was the like
what was the more
random
powerful
stabbing?
way to die? You know? And
This reminds me of I don't know if you watch this. This is probably a bit too much like YouTube trash that I watch, but I watch the Frenemies podcast on the H3 podcast, which is with like Ethan Klein and Trisha Paytas, a bit outside the Weeb world.
Yeah.
And she's like a really funny, ridiculous person. But she was kind of saying like, she says this like, oh, well, if I'm going to get killed by someone, I think like OJ Simpson would be a good person to get killed by, because then my death would be more iconic. It would show up in a documentary. And it's like the most ridiculous thing to say, but I feel like we're almost on a same level, but for like fiction, like which would be more iconic way to die? Like it's like so odd.
well, because here, hey, we're justified here because we're talking about like emotional resonance and how
Yeah,
this could have
true.
more emotionally resonated, at least with us.
Yeah,
How
definitely.
It could have been delivered to, I don't know, a way that's our standards, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, I have a standard, like a 3x3
have my
of
standard.
character deaths, you know?
I
3x3
have
of
seen
character
those.
deaths.
Those are tough because I think I almost want to make one, but you're always spoiling someone at some point.
Yeah. It's just
We should do that. That's our next
3x3
podcast.
the
3x3 character deaths.
The 3x3 should be it should all be spoiler tags, so it should just be
Yeah.
all grayed out, and you click each one and you could just see each death.
Could you imagine? That would be interesting. We should do that.
Pretty cool. I think we should save it for like maybe a few more podcasts. I gotta think on it.
Yeah, I gotta double check which shows you've seen, and then be like, I can spoil that.
Yeah.
But I don't think. Yeah, I just think. You know, I think I've come to terms. I don't mind the stabbing. I was just not invested to begin with. But if I was, I'd be like, oh, it's extra sad. I think I've come to terms with that.
Yeah, I mean, like again, I gave it a point or two up because it wasn't as bad. I like that I caught all the nuances and everything tied in, but it does bother me that a lot of this was told to you, and you know, you're supposed to feel a certain way that, oh, you know, his name means spring tree and her name means cherry blossom, and that's why they were supposed to meet together, and that's why all this stuff. And it's like, all right, okay, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very torn between if I have to raise this to a 2, because I did think some things were not bad. I thought some things were I do think some of the character animation was better than what I remembered. The last scene looked kind of good with the cool storybook thing. I'm not sure though. It's kind of tough because this is like, I've gone so long hating this, and it's been like my one like standout 1 out of 10. But I think if I'm true to myself, I do have to give it a 2 out of 10. But
yeah,
it is still something I think is not well executed. And I do think the emotional resonance, instead of being something that I can positively relate to, it's such a negative emotional connection due to how I feel it handles a subject matter that I have a real life connection to in such a strong way. So it's still in the mud, but it's less in the mud than before.
Yeah, I'm not too offended by it on a personal level, but, you know, because also at the same time, for those of you that have been following the podcast, I'm still not figured out completely on my scores. I don't know how those fully work yet. Right now, this is still a gut feeling sort of thing. Like, oh, I think that's a 3, maybe that's a, you know, that number. But I think, I don't know. I definitely feel like if I don't ever want to watch it again, aside from having to rewatch it for this, or maybe a future group watch that I might be subjected to, I'm like, that's pretty indicative of it's definitely a 5 or below. So I'm like, you know, somewhere between like, although I've heard that, you know, if you don't want to rewatch even a 7, that's, you know, that's pretty fair too. But you know, I'd probably raise it to maybe like a 3, maybe a 4.
Did you have it as a 2 the first time?
Yeah, I had it as a 2.
Okay, so we were both around the same level. But I'm torn because my 1 out of 10s are like thinking of them make me angry, which I think is a nice contrast to my 10s, which thinking about them makes me happy. So like elicits an inherent emotional reaction. But my 2 out of 10s are kind of like, these are just so poorly done that these are just like absolutely like, I hate them, but I'm not like, they're not on my mind rent free about how much I hate them. Yeah. And I think Pancreas, what are some of my tunes?
What was that?
Were you asking for examples or?
No, like would a 1 out of 10 be living rent free in your head?
Like I think of them and I'm like, oh my God, I hate this shit. Like I hate it. Delete it. Scorch earth. Destroy this from existence. So that's how I feel like a lot of my 1 out of 10s differentiate from my 2 out of 10s. So like I have thought about how much I don't like Pancreas, but now I've come from the emotional aspect is manipulative to it's just so poorly done. It's like at first I was angry and now I just feel sorry for it. So, and I feel like my 2 out of 10s are a bit more like, oh, poor thing. Then like my 1 out of 10s are like, destroy them, like pitchfork.
Yeah. Parts of it do make me angry, but I think I'm like at the point where I just want to like make peace with it and never see it again.
I want closure.
Like, put it on a ship and like let it sail into the horizon.
Leave it, you know, it's like leave it on the hill and be free.
Yeah. So, you know, I think I don't know. I think I'll probably do 3 out of 10. You know, we'll leave it at that, you know.
I will have to reassess if it's the 2 or the 1. Only time will tell, but I don't know. It worked well as my 1 out of 10, but I don't know. I don't want to disingenuously keep a 1 out of 10. I want to be true to my 1 out of 10s.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I get like why people would like it and why would resonate with that, but I have to also make that separation of what
I mean,
other people feel versus, you know,
versus me. But it's so fair. It's such a fair game to people if they have it. If people have Pancreas as a 10 out of 10, I'm like, more power to you. I don't have negative feelings towards people who enjoy things. I don't. If anything, I have like FOMO or jealousy. I'm like, yo, I wish we were on the same page. I would love to enjoy everything I watch. Would love to just have nothing but positive thoughts. But unfortunately, I don't think you can truly enjoy the things you love without recognizing the things you hate. I know some people don't like that perspective, but I do think we're not going to inherently love everything. And sometimes having those negative experiences remind you why you love the things you do so much.
Yeah. And actually, now that I think about it, a 2 out of 10 was like definitely spite for me. So that's like me being mad at it. So a 3 out of 10, that's fair. It's like, all right, I'm no longer, I don't have vitriol for you anymore.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we're good.
I think my like 3 out of 10s are like, 4 is like, it's just bad, but I'm not like too pissed about it. 3 out of 10s are like, yeah, they really did not make this well. Like this sucked. This sucked ass.
Definitely helps to have points of comparison. Like it's, you know, you got to be fair in what you're comparing to what. But like, for example, if you know you have Your Lie in April, which is sort of similar, at a 6 out of 10, it's like, okay, then that's a good frame of reference. Then this kind of deserves where it's at. So
yeah, because I know some people have the same negative reaction we do to Your Lie in April because of how they treat abuse. Because they're like, I find it really offensive how they just have the main character have this abusive relationship with his mom, and then Kaori was like, yeah, just get over it, and would like jokingly punch him. And that dissonance between the comedic aspects and the serious moments were such a like mismatch to them that they're like, yeah, I hate this. This makes me really angry and I dislike it. And I think that's totally fair. But I was pretty indifferent towards the way it was handled. So I'm not going to pretend to have that same level of like anger towards Your Lie in April. Yeah. When I'm like, okay, I mean, I understand, but I'm not like pissed about it, you know?
No, yeah. And that's totally valid because like I'm like indifferent to a lot of it, you know, a lot of Pancreas, like, because what I felt before was anger and sort of I couldn't take it seriously, especially with the whole permission to cry thing.
But, it's just so funny how you permission to cry, granted.
Permission to cry, sir. Now it's just more of like, okay, I just feel indifferent. I just feel like, all right, whatever. You know, I'm glad for the guy. He got friends. Other guy got gum. You know, we all
like
good.
What friend? Like what? I mean, besides Gum Bro, he's the best. But why would you want to be friends with Kyoko? She's just so miserable. Like,
she's apparently, you know, a year later, she's come around. She's
chill. Maybe
she grew out her hair. You know,
living life.
I mean, at least he didn't end up with her. He's not in a relationship with her. You know, that I don't know if that would have been a good look.
If he would dated her, I think that would be like actually awful. Like that would be terrible if he's like, oh yeah, now we're dating, and it's like, fuck off. Yeah. I know you don't take the. If they said that, I'd be like, they do not take this seriously whatsoever.
I mean, I legit thought, what's her name?
Kyoko or whatever.
Yeah, I was about to call her Cowdy or something. I legit thought the main girl. I thought she was trying to like ship them together. Her friend with him.
It's so funny how she was like, I just wish you two would get along. And he just stays silent. But it's like, why don't you talk to your friend who keeps threatening to kill me every time she sees me? Like, I have no like control over how toxic she is. So like, why don't you try and work on that?
All right. I got to address this real quick. The Kage Pro says, does this mean this podcast was you two going through the 5 stages of grief, then coming to acceptance that maybe it's not a 1 out of 10 after all? Well, to be honest, this wasn't intended.
It's maybe the 1 out of 10s were the friends we made along the way.
I was thinking about that. That was on my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 1 out of 10s were the friends we begrudgingly made along the way.
It just makes me wonder, like, maybe if I rewatch all my 1 out of 10s, maybe they won't be 1 out of 10s. And then I went back to look at my 1 out of 10s, and I'm like, nope, that was so bad. That was mud ass. Like, 1 out of 10, generous.
I mean, it also, there's other factors, you know, because it could have been like the day you were watching it, the mood you were in, you know, especially with a film, because it's not like an anime where it's like multiple episodes. You have time. You have it like every week.
Yeah.
Maybe to kind of go back through it if you're not binging, to kind of give it a second look, to think on it. With the film, it's just a one solitary experience. You know, you watched it that one time, and let's say you were in a shitty mood. Let's say you could only watch it dubbed. You know,
you could only watch it dubbed with friends. Yeah. I mean, I definitely just had that with Spirited Away. I saw it for the first time when I was like 10. And
me too.
Oh yeah. I think there's like a group of people who are in their late 20s who saw it when they were 10 and were traumatized by it for like a good 10 years. I think that's like a group of us.
I saw it when I was like, I don't know. I was really young. I was like 10 or something. And then I didn't care for it. I didn't like it. I didn't get what all the hype was about. It was like getting accolades. Like it was just, and I was like, I don't get it. Like I was kind of jealous. Like, why am I not getting what other people are getting? And then I rewatched it with my cousin and my fiance back in 2015, and we were just chilling and we were watching it. And I was like, and maybe because I was older, I was like, oh, hey, this is pretty good. Like,
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
No,
I think it's one of those kid movies that adults appreciate more than kids, you know? Like, you definitely have those kid movies that adults are like, wow, this is a perfect exploration of youth and childhood and stuff. But when you're a kid and watch it, you're like, nah, fuck this. This is creepy and I don't like it and I don't get it. You know, I think there's just that dissonance sometimes between like stuff aimed at a younger audience.
It's a kid film.
Exactly. Even though it is a kid film, I think it just doesn't work. Maybe other people it worked for, but for me it didn't. And I watched it, and the second time around, the way they show her parents turning into pigs is definitely very horrifying. They do such a good job of showing how disgusting and terrifying it is. So I'm going to give my kid self some slack and say, like, you were right in being traumatized by it. That was fair. And they do a good job, but it's also terrifying. So.
Yeah. I don't remember that. Maybe it was terrifying. I don't exactly remember.
It was just like, if you see the clip, it's just like the whole way that they start to do it. It's like you get that eeriness, and her parents are being huge fat asses, eating food that like, why would they do that? Yeah. And then she's walking around and she runs into, I forget the dude's name.
There was definitely things when I was a kid that I watched that aren't really terrifying, but because I was a kid and the way it happened, it didn't make me want to touch it for years.
I think this one is the other category where like you could see it like actually being terrifying. Like the way they show these pigs are like actually the most terrifying part of the film. Like there's ghosts and shit, and these pigs are the most like holy shit.
Ghibli podcast. We got to get on that.
That would be fun. I'm almost a Ghibli expert now. I can almost rank them.
I also did rewatch Promare this week.
Ooh, how was that?
It was good. I was kind of half paying attention because I was doing work. So I was like, I had it on the background. Meanwhile, my fiance was the one like, hey, you want to rewatch Promare? I'm like, all right, whatever. And then she was like glued to it. And I'm like kind of half paying attention. Yeah. And I was like, do you want to watch it a third time? You weren't really paying attention. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll watch it next time when I'm not working. So,
yeah.
I mean, the one thing I clearly remembered was that I love the soundtrack. Like, I love the soundtrack. I remember listening to that over and over after the whole trigger panel.
Yeah, I love the soundtrack. I think that's a huge reason I enjoy it so much. I'm like a very big soundtrack person. So
and I'm not, and I specifically
and so you remembered,
love that soundtrack. So any concluding thoughts on Pancreas?
I think we've weirdly, I don't know. I think we've come full circle on it where we're like, we don't enjoy it, but it was not as bad the first time around. I don't know if people will feel comforted by that or if we're betraying our fellow haters, but like, I don't know. I don't think the film is good, but I mean, I guess I hate it a bit less than I did the first time. So, you know, I'll take the wins where I can get them. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I still don't want to eat, you know. I don't want to eat a pancreas. I don't want to eat a pancreas. So never eating a pancreas. We can agree to that. You know, and I saw what they were going again with the whole poetic kind of sort of thing, and you know, it's nice, but it wasn't enough to manipulate me into crying. So Do you also think we're possibly just too old for this? Are we just too old? Is there like, I was thinking about this and I was like, this kind of reminds me of like 13 Reasons Why, which is probably like actually harmful and like should not be compared to Pancreas, because 13 Reasons Why is like misleading, stupid, and like actually manipulative on like serious issues that could harm the youths. But like, I don't want to compare that to Pancreas, but I was thinking about it. I'm like, you can't watch 13 Reasons Why after you turn 13. Like, you just, like, you can't, at some point, you're, like, just too old for things. Like, do you think that's applicable for this?
Possibly, but because I was skimming through A Walk to Remember before this, I kind of, like, was wicking the rest of the plot summary. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, see, I could tear up from this. And this is a fucking summary. So this is doing it right. This is doing the sappiness right. Like, I could see that it's doing it, but I'm like, okay, but that's how you do it, you know? So, I don't know. Could also just be that.
I think it's probably both. Like, at some point, there's like a good time to watch this, and then at some point, it's just also not your cup of tea. It's just
we've just been called the Boomer Podcast.
We are boomers. We are Boomer Podcasts. I think there are more boomers out there, but we're like getting close.
Yeah, unfortunately, but that's just life. So
it goes on.
That concludes our lackluster thoughts on Pancreas. No. We didn't trash it as much as we thought we would.
We'll find out if we trashed it as much as they thought, because we'll find out how many dislikes and negative comments we get from people who are like, I love this and you are mean and you didn't get it. Unsubscribe. You said we already got some people to unsubscribe. So
I think they just unsubscribed from the trailer drop.
Oh, yeah. Okay. The trailer Panic made for this was better than Pancreas. I'm just saying that. Panic is a genius and it's funny and better than Pancreas.
Yeah. So with that, we're going to leave it off at that. We're going to get into the post show, but for audio listeners and kind of people that have been tuning in, you can subscribe to the channel and, keep up with the podcast, or unsubscribe if you totally found this podcast offensive and you are a diehard Pancreas stan.
Yeah.
We don't apologize, but we feel like we didn't trash it. As we gave it as fair of a shot as we could. We
did give it another shot. We did give it another shot. So we respect our differences.
Yes. And if you did enjoy the podcast, please give it a like. Leave us a comment. If you feel it needs to be a nasty comment, go right ahead.
We'll be more positive next week.
Yeah, we'll be more positive next week. Next week, I think we'll be shifting to the seasonals. So yeah, that should be.
So no promises if we'll be positive. We will just be talking about more things.
No promises on that. And then besides that, you can also catch us on audio streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. I think we're on all of them. Google Podcasts. Leave us a review. And what else? Besides that, if you don't agree with us, we don't care.
We're just weebs.
If you don't agree with us, we don't care. We're just weebs.
I do like that one.
Yep. All right. And now let's get into the post show.
Woo.
All right.
Our post show last time was like really popping. Like, it was party time.
Yeah, It was fun. Yeah. So anyways, if you're new here or I don't know, if you don't know, we have a post show. So we're just going to stick around, hang out for a few. If you have any questions, any comments, any thoughts about Pancreas or anything unrelated, we'll be happy to answer.
Yeah.
And that's it.
and that's all, folks. Yeah.
I'm going to look back at some comments, see if I missed
We had some good comments. I feel like people were being pretty chill.
Rent a Girlfriend is my only one at the moment. It genuinely angers me when I see it.
Did you finish Rent a Girlfriend?
Yeah, I did. I watched the whole...
What did you give it?
Oh, I don't think I gave it a rating.
The cop out. You rated your whole mail. How do you keep not having ratings when you had an entire arc rating everything you've seen?
I gave up. With the ratings like halfway through just for efficiency's sake, because I'm like, all right, if I'm actually gonna finish cataloging things, I can't stop to rate things and whatever. So I didn't finish rating everything, which I should. I'm gonna get back to.
What do you feel in your heart, like initial impression Rent a Girlfriend?
6 or 7.
I think that's fair.
I know a lot of people give it like they really enjoyed it, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So there was definitely some nice moments. So, I think 6 or 7, somewhere in that ballpark. What about you?
I didn't finish it, but I could also see it in that kind of like 6 range. I feel like it's like a perfect 5 or 6. And I don't mean that in like a condescending way. I just felt like it was like enjoyable. I don't want to say enjoyable for what it is because that sounds so snob, but like, I wasn't like super into it, but I could see it being a fun time. If anything, my podcast did, when we mentioned the first 3 episodes for like one of our seasonal impressions, and we were like, if you just take the first episode, it's kind of like a perfect way of disavowing inceldom in like one episode. So it's almost like it could be a 1 episode banger on its own.
Yeah. I mean, like, the first episode had promise, but also I was just not too sure about the main character and kind of where things were going.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It was like it was interesting, but I don't know. I don't think I'll feel strongly about it one way or another if I finish it. So
yeah, I think like I don't know. Even so, you didn't finish it.
No, maybe I'll finish it. I don't know. No promises.
I think it might have gone up a point during like while it was going, because at the beginning I was like, this is not anything great, but I don't know. I also feel like I'm being somewhat generous, so maybe 6 or 7 for now. Maybe it's more leaning towards the 6.
Yeah.
Let's see. Drag said, think I've seen too many bad anime to call this a 2. Terrible OVAs like Dog Soldier and Akame ga Kill.
I have Akame ga Kill higher than this.
Really?
Yeah. Because I think Akame ga Kill is like, for a time, it was like my perfect 5 out of 10. Where like for half of the run, I was like, this is fine. This is fun, but edgy. And then the second half, I'm like, okay, this sucks. But like, it is what it is. It was actually, violent. I don't want to say edgy. It is edgy. Violent, edgy action, fun watch. I watched it, had fun. Didn't think of it twice after finishing it, but like I could recommend it to people if I thought they would enjoy it. I don't think it's like that offensive of a series. Yeah,
I read the whole manga.
I heard that was a ride.
Yeah, that was a ride. I don't know. I think it was like 4 out of 10 for me. It was just like,
I think that's fair. Some people have like really extreme reactions to it, and I'm like, I don't really get it, but okay, fair enough.
Like, I know it wasn't trying to be anything different, but then by the end of it, I don't know. I don't feel like I got anything out of it. So I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. Like my 5 out of 10 is like positive and negatives kind of even out, and I could recommend it to some people, but also probably wouldn't recommend it. It just depends on the situation.
Yeah. And I saw Drax had made a comment. See, that's the thing. Once you see a lot of anime, you start comparing anime to other things. And as much as I love anime, he's kind of like that little brother, he's special, so no expectations.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. I do know some people kind of take the medium less seriously compared to like live action stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think I do that, but like I can definitely understand that impulse.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And you said you would recommend the 5 out of 10 to people.
It depends. If I thought they would enjoy it, I could recommend a 5. I might. It's not a blanket case.
So it's like more of, in your heart of hearts that it's a 5 for you, but there is value to the show that other people would see.
Yeah, under certain circumstances, I could recommend a 5 out of 10. 4 out of 10 and below, I cannot recommend. So that's kind of like the weird. Yeah, if I'm on the fence, that's how I
thought
pick
most
sides.
People's cutoff point for recommending stuff to people was what was it? 7 out of 10.
I mean, I think there are values in 6 out of 10s. I think that's still a positive experience. It's just not something I would call good or something I value. It's just, there are a lot of 6 out of 10s that just kind of miss the mark, but I still got something good out of them. But I consider 7 out of 10s good. And if I'm not going to call something good, but I still could see value in it, then that's a 6 out of 10.
Gotcha.
For example, something like, I think a perfect 6 out of 10. I don't know if you've seen this one. I probably should know, but like Girlish Number. Did you ever see that when that aired?
Oh, we talked about this. I think
we
briefly.
did.
I saw like an episode, never continued it. Asked you if it was worth watching, and you were like, yeah, it was like a 6 out of 10. I was like, oh, never mind.
Yeah, so that's like a perfect seasonal to me, where like it had a lot of promise. I don't think it lived up to that promise, but it had like a semi-unique concept and it was enjoyable, but like I wouldn't recommend people go back and watch it, but it was perfect to watch as a seasonal when it came out. So like I have positive takeaways from it, but I'm not
That's
gonna.
interesting. So that's
Yeah.
your metric for what makes up like a perfect seasonal, the 6 out of 10 range.
Not always. I think there are perfect seasonals that exist above that, but
Well,
I think
no,
they're
obviously,
yeah.
but like if like for to live up to the, you know, kind of seasonal kind of popcorn title where it's
Yeah.
like, you know it's not a masterpiece, but
Yeah.
you know it's not like absolute, you know, garbage
Yeah.
to use the term.
Yeah.
But you know, it's good for what it is in the time that it's airing. And would that
Yeah.
be a 6 out of 10?
I think so. I've seen some others where I do have like sometimes I mentally differentiate between a good show that's worth revisiting and a good show that was fine to watch as a seasonal and kind of like never look back on.
Gotcha.
I think that's like a mental thing for me. Like, so you know, so I'm thinking of like a circumstance. Say someone wants to watch an anime on the industry. Like they want to see something about the industry. They just finished Shirobako. They loved it. They want to see more shows that are kind of similar. I'd be like, okay, it's not as good, but check out Girlish Number. It's kind of a more like, you know, dark comedy look at what it's like to work on a failing seasonal show. And I think that would be a good circumstance to recommend it. If someone is just like, recommend me a good workplace anime, I'm like, okay, I can think of 10 shows ahead of Girlish Number that I'm going to recommend. But if they want that really specific subject matter, it works well for that.
Yeah, so you're saying Girlish Number at least executes it well enough that you could recommend it for that specific category.
Exactly.
Because if Girlish Number met that requirement, but let's say it was more like a 3 out of 10, like it wasn't well done, you probably wouldn't recommend it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Drax says, not all 5 out of 10s are the same, which sucks because if I rate something 5 out of 10, someone has to ask me about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm in the same boat. Not all 5 out of 10s. Yeah, my 5 out of 10s are kind of a mess, but
I want to get into this scoring thing, but I'm going to have to because now I'm noticing some inconsistencies and some stuff that I rated and I'm like, oh yeah, is that really a 9? I'm like, all right, man. I don't know, man.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a tough call. As long as you feel like it works for you, that's really all that matters.
Yeah. Let's see. Dwarfy says, I find it hard to review or give scores to movies from established franchises. For example, the Hunter x Hunter movies, they butcher and mishandle stuff, but just seeing certain characters get animated is cool.
Oh, I hate the Hunter x Hunter movies. I hate them like a lot.
Really?
I think they're...
I never watched any of them.
Don't watch them. Okay.
I have a typical rule of thumb to not watch anime films from like a franchise.
Yeah.
I just don't because, and I learned that from Dragon Ball Z, like very early on, just because usually they're not canon.
Yeah. Yeah. The Hunter x Hunter ones are like, you know, if you don't understand why someone would find Hunter x Hunter generic and poorly written, just watch the movies and you're like, oh, this is what some people think the TV series is like, but this is what they like. It's like what they see versus what I see kind of thing. But like, yeah, they just add insult to injury. I hate them so bad. They're so bad. But then they have like one scene of cool action and then you see that around and you're like, this almost justifies its existence, but it still doesn't. They're still bad.
Like that's like kind of the only thing that is good about the movies. They have the budget to like kind of give that one really cool animated scene that justifies their existence and, you know.
Yeah, but I hate it because then they're like, then people will be like, well, it had that one cool fight scene. I'm like, but it still is insulting to the original series.
That's why I really enjoyed the My Hero Academia, the second movie, because it had the cool fight scenes. It was technically, it is considered canon, and it didn't like take away anything from the series. If anything, it gave everyone kind of screen time. So
I feel like Hiro Aka kind of works for that kind of thing more. Like for the second Hunter x Hunter movie, you got to understand the beginning of it starts off with them meeting Kite, then them leaving wherever Kite is to go back to Heaven's Arena.
Mm-hmm.
That's the beginning. They're leaving the Chimera Ant beginning to go back to Heaven's Arena to watch Zushi fight. And I was like, you already lost me. This is already stupid. Like, this is terrible. Like, what are you doing? Whereas,
why would you leave the best arc? Why would you leave one of the best arcs to, you know,
like,
go do
I didn't even know they could do that. Why would you do that? And then it just gets downhill from there. They have like Darkmen. It's so stupid. I hate it.
Yeah, because that's the whole thing with movies. They have to kind of like shoehorn or make up this like random bullshit that doesn't affect the main universe.
I get a headache thinking about it. So bad. Don't watch them. So bad.
Drax adds, a lot of my 4 out of 10s are things that contradict their theme, like Zankaria Undying Love.
Is that a like? I haven't heard of that. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of the title Zankaria. I don't know if Undying Love. I don't know if Undying Love is that part of the title? I think it is part of the title.
Yeah.
Okay, I just looked it up. The full title is Zankaria Undying Love. Yeah. So I never really got into it, so I don't know.
Maybe it's about maybe they die and
I
then
think it's
love.
about zombies.
Oh.
I think it's like the main girl is like a zombie. Let's see. I'm gonna look up the main character is a male high school student with a keen interest in zombies, collecting zombie-related video games, film, and manga, and even to the point of desiring to kiss a zombie girl. Following the death of his pet cat Babu, he attempts to revive it using an old manuscript which describes the process of creating a potion for resurrection. At this time, he encounters a girl named Rhea Zanka, who has run away from home. In an attempt to commit suicide, she drinks a sample of the resurrection potion, which is created from the poisonous Hydrangea macrophylla flower, although this fails to kill her. Following an argument with her father, she falls from a cliff by accident and dies. However, as a result of this potion, she becomes a zombie who eats hydrangea, and hydrangea leaves to survive. The story follows the life of Chihiro and his new zombie girlfriend.
I'm good. I'm gonna call it a day.
I'm all right.
I'm all right.
I'll
There's so
pass.
many times when you hear a description for something and you're like, yeah, I think I'm good. Call it a day.
Yeah. Subject adds, I wish the Hunter x Hunter movies looked bad too, so I could hate them wholeheartedly.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is they don't look like that great. Like they have a few scenes that are good, but it's not like a Sakuga fest where you're missing much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get that at least.
All right. I think we're gonna conclude it here.
Yeah.
Right.
So thank you. Hopefully we didn't bother everyone by hating Pancreas.
And if we did, that's just our opinion. But I'm not gonna do the tagline again. So.
You're still valid if you love it. We don't.
Yeah.
We respect, kind of.
All right. See you guys. Thanks for sticking around.